Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to iteach Live. This is my opportunity every day to speak with an educator or an administrator about the teaching profession. And so we're about 6 weeks into this, and I'm excited this morning to speak with Pam Sanders. Good morning, Pam.
Good morning. How are you?
You know, I'm doing well. I'm glad of the heat reprieve in North Texas yesterday as we settle into another, I'm sure, hot Texas summer.
Yeah. I'm in Kentucky visiting, and it's cool. It's in the 60s here this morning.
Well, you don't need to rub it in. We're approaching 100. Now, you are in Kentucky right now. Where do you call home?
Texas, West Columbia, Texas, to be exact, and CBISD is my home company. So
Now, for those not familiar with the Texas landscape or people
Mhm.
listening outside of Texas, where is that in the state of Texas?
It's about 60 miles south of Houston, and it was has a claim to fame, the first capital of Texas. It's on the
Oh,
Brazos River, so it's our claim to fame.
so you must be down by the coast then, if you're that
Yes,
far
sir.
below Houston.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully that last tropical storm wasn't too bad for you and your family.
No, we came up here, so I missed it. We got up here before it came, but it hit up here, the winds and the rain, so it's kind of ironic.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Just for anyone watching this morning, we are going to be monitoring the comment section. So if you have questions for Pam as we kind of dive into her teaching experience, just drop a line in the comment section. We'll be happy as time permits to ask Pam those questions and engage your perspective into the conversation. Pam, I want to eventually get to your experience in the classroom, but before I do that, every day I like hearing the background and how you found the classroom. And so I'd love to hear, is this something that you knew in college and your undergrad you'd be teaching, or what was a journey into teaching for you?
Well, I was a granddaughter of a teacher, an educator. She spent 30 years in CBISD, and so I was around it, and I'd help her do papers after school and the old crank, purple thing that you used to do. And I saw her love for children, and I was always one of the older cousins that would take care of the younger cousins. And I just knew, I thought, okay, this is a fit for me. And I didn't go to college right out of high school. I went right to work. So this didn't come about until I was pregnant. After being married 8 years, my first child, I was working at Texas A&M. My husband was a student. I thought I better get something to help take care of this child, So I started school at night at Blinn Junior College taking courses. And it took me a long time, it took me 14 years, but I can remember sitting with my grandmother, the educator. She was retired at this time. She said, Pamela, you know that when you're a teacher, it doesn't stop at 3:30. I said, yes, ma'am. I know, I've seen you. And she said, and I would stop when I'd have another child. I just have 2 kiddos. And so it took me, that's why it took me so long. She kept telling me, you can do it, just persevere. And when I hit the math block, I was like, oh my goodness. But I just kept going, and I got through it, through different universities. And my husband, of course, he's an engineer, so we moved around. So I have a lot of universities under my heading, but finally finished up at Murray State University. And by that time, my children were quite a bit older, and I was working volunteering when I could in schools. And I just went that route. By the time I got up here to Kentucky, I knew I went ahead and applied for the teacher program. So that's how I got in. And then I did not start teaching right away because my kids were still in school. And as a teacher, I have found out that you've got to be dedicated 100%. And I knew that I would want to take off with my children. I was a stay-at-home mom and do things with them, field trips or whatever. So I didn't feel like it was fair to leave the classroom. So I didn't go right into work till they were almost out of college. Because my son went to A&M. We were living in Kentucky. And I didn't want to miss his core activities. And then my daughter was in rodeo teams in college. So I've just been teaching. This will be going on my 5th year full time. So it took me a while to grow up.
Well, it sounds like you have an interesting journey for the commitment and dedication you had to finish that undergrad, and then you subbed for several years before actually pursuing the certification.
Almost 10 years I'd sub, and sometimes I subbed the whole semester one time with kindergarten, and then a lot of maternity leaves and surgeries and stuff like that. So I did some long term and tried not to miss too much.
We were just speaking with an individual earlier this week about how beneficial substituting was for the transition to your own classroom. Did you find that same experience to be true?
Yes, very much. It was very eye-opening. I had a professor tell me, Mr. Rudolph, he was great. He said, if you want to see if this is for you, because in education it's a change. It's always evolving. If you don't like changes, it's not your profession. So I took that to heart and decided I would have had enough hours. I'd start subbing just to test the waters, and it was good. It was great. I did a little bit of everything in a county outside of where my children went to school because I wanted to student teach here, and anyway, that didn't work out. You can't do that in your county where your kids are up here in Kentucky. But so it was good. I got to see a different school district, and then I did my student teaching in Paducah in a different school district, and then I sub mostly here, after I graduated. So in fact, I remember the very first day I substituted, I was scared here in the county full time. I'd done just a little bit, but the lady had started, she was first grade, and she had to be wheeled out into the hospital. So I started my first day of full time here in Livingston, like boom, right off the bat in first grade. So it was interesting. Just get prepared. If you sub, get prepared for unusual things to happen, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, it seems like substituting provides you kind of a lower commitment exposure to the classroom.
Yes, because I had to delve in and learn curriculum and learn how to write lesson plans, which I did in student teaching. But when you're in the reality, it's a little scary, overwhelming, but you have a lot of help. And the teaching community, very helpful. I found up here in Kentucky and in Texas also. We like to help each other. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it seems like from just my interactions with teachers over the past couple of weeks and working, I teach for so long, the idea of a support structure within teaching seems almost critical for the success of not only the individual teacher, but also the students.
Correct, yes.
So for the context of individuals listening in, what is your area of certification? What are you certified to teach?
My certification in Texas is EC through 6. My degree is a little different. Kentucky was K through 5, but I've learned EC6 is what it is. So early childhood through 6th.
Childhood through 6th grade. And then what, you've been teaching for 5 years. What have you been in different grades, or what's the grade level?
First grade, and then we switched. We made a primary school, pre-K through 1, and we're switching around. I'm going to pre-K, and I've never done pre-K, so this will be fun. I get to get my grandmother's skills going. So I'm learning something new. So it's going to be interesting.
So you have been for 5 years in first grade.
Yes, sir.
Now we're jumping down from what, 6, 7-year-olds to 3 and 4-year-olds.
4-year, yes, they say 4-year-olds. So and I've been doing the curriculum and reading up and taking some courses online. So it's fun. That's one thing too. As a teacher, you're going to always be learning because it's always changing. Just like a doctor or a lawyer, you got to learn the new rules, the new laws, and new curriculum, because curriculum changes every once in a while too. So you're a perpetual student as a teacher, I found out.
Yeah, as we call it here at iteach, lifelong learners.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm interested to hear how you're preparing for this upcoming year. You can maybe speak into the experience of other teachers who might be watching this. Is you've been teaching someone for 5 years. You've probably gotten a pretty good routine in terms of what the kind of the cyclical nature of the school year looks like and the maturity level of your kids. And now it's all going to change. So what practically are you doing over the summer to hit the ground running come day one with a whole new set of kids and ages and maturity level, educational, everything's gonna be different for you?
Yes, doing a lot of research, and I asked my principal for training, and she set me up with CLI, Early Childhood Learning Institute, and then so doing a lot of reading, asking, going to blogs, and also asking my team that I'll be going with. Some of them are moving up, some of us are moving down, so we're all working together, and just a lot of research, but like a student again, starting over.
What's your anticipation based on the research you've done, the conversations you've had? What's your anticipation of your biggest challenge going down to the younger grades?
It's going to be different, very different for me, because we had a structure and a learning into where this is more play-based learning. So there's a lot of center activity. So I'm not going to be structured with my math. I had math, science, and social studies. So I'm not going to be so much structured on curriculum as it was. And there's not many computer programs. There's only one computer program where we had 2 different programs and we had to keep it with data. So there's going to be less of that. So it's going to be almost more like the social emotional learning. So I'm going to have to groom them and just teach them basic skills and have to go in. I keep hearing and go in and treat them like you would treat your own children. You know, you can't be as forceful discipline as a mom, but you teach them a different way of learning life skills and learning how to behave with each other. So I'm learning a lot of psychology, delving into it. I'm learning that pre-K is going to be a lot of, like say, social emotional learning skills. So it's different. It's very interesting. A lot of Pavlov coming back in.
Yes, yes. So I'm a father of a 3-year-old son and a 5-year-old son. So where you're entering is my world all the time. And so
Yeah.
Godspeed for a classroom of those kids.
Patience. I've been told I have the patience of Job. Some of the parents say, "Oh my goodness." I said, "Well, I come out naturally, I guess. I had a sweet, sweet grandmother and parents."
Yeah, I think patience is probably going to be a highly used characteristic
Yeah.
for you. So I'm interested, you mentioned just briefly about relationships with students. And so I'd love to hear about how you've built relationships with your first graders, share some experiences that maybe other teachers could find helpful and building those relationships. How did you do that, I guess is the best question.
From day one, set the tone in the classroom that you're loving, you're caring, but also that you have high expectations. And you might be able to do these things at home that they do, but we're in a classroom, we're a community, we can't do those things. But we can do this. We can love each other, we can respect, we can keep our hands to ourselves. So you just gotta learn, especially at a young age. I never did teach the older grades. I subbed in them, and so you had to treat them a little different. But the younger kids, you just got to keep reiterating over and over about your school rules and how to respect yourself to be able to respect others. So in this climate, day and time, it's a challenge. It's a repetitive thing, and sometimes you get burned out from it. But you just have to re-energize and know what you're there for, and love those kiddos. I do. I still see some of them, Miss Sanders, they're older and they want to hug me and I want to hug back. So yeah. It's going to be different with COVID coming up.
Yeah. My 3-year-old actually, as I was walking out the door this morning, said, "Dad, can I get a long distance hug?" And we did this air hug. So it seems like he's picking up on the social distance.
Hey, I like that, an air hug. I have to take that. My aunt does jazz hands. She's in her 80s. And jazz hands. We're a huggy type family. We're a close family.
Absolutely. So how do you go about relating to kids in terms of, I mean, you might have family around the kids of that age, but for individuals that don't, how do you go about understanding their motivations at their age, what they relate to? Because I know for me as a parent, I'm interested in your perspective as a teacher, that some of the things that I have to relate to with a 3 and 5-year-old, I have to get into their world. So it's got to be a Paw Patrol thing or reiteration of what Daniel Tiger's saying on TV, because that's where they pick up a lot of things. How do you relate to first graders' motivation drivers?
That's one thing too. It's been funny. I've had to learn that Barney is not popular anymore. So when they talk about things, I'll have to ask them. I'm interested in, and I love working lunchtime or breakfast because that's my downtime. It's not the classroom stuff, but we talk about things. So I get some social skills and relationship going there on, we didn't do recess this year at Paris, but finding what interests them and then go and research it, because some of the stuff I didn't know, I thought, I don't know who that is, but I question, and I'd go and look, and ask, because I don't have any children that are young. I just have my first grandbaby. She was born during COVID. So, I mean, that's the first one that we've had in the family. So you've got to do your research. You've got to be interested. And at this age, that young age, it's all about them. Sure, we're the teachers, we're the control, but their minds are on, video games or whatever the little singer girl is, JoJo, I think it was. I had to look that up. I don't know who that is. Is that backpacks came in with all that stuff. And I remember when I first started teaching, Minecraft was real big, and I had to figure out what that was and ask questions. But find something that's interesting to them, because their little world is all about them.
Yeah.
I mean, they know they've got to do this other stuff, but as soon as it's done and they've learned it their own, so it's all about the me. So so that's what you're doing. You're doing good with your children like that, the air hugs and finding out what interests them, even though it's like, because I can remember watching Barney with my children thinking, oh my goodness, really? But that was important to them. So.
Well, and I also find when you talk about it's all about them, you're absolutely right. And relating to them is where relationships and learning is going to be taking form. So I'm curious about, what was I going to ask? I had a question about, well, you know what? I just lost that completely.
That happens too, even when you're teaching in the room.
Out. Well, I think what I was going to say is they love to share. Like if you ask them and
yes,
feign interest, they want to tell you everything about what their little world is perceiving and going through.
Yes. And that's what's hard to take time, especially, in the classroom, because you'll ask them questions and they'll raise their hand and then we'll tell you a story. So you have to differentiate. Okay, what I'm looking for the answer. That's a story. We'll talk about that later, but can you give me the answer to the question? But they'll tell you about Uncle Pete has this and his Aunt Sally has that, and they don't get to the question at this age. So it's important it's a fine line to walk, to not hurt their feelings, but figure out how to get them to get the answer, and then we'll talk about the story, at lunch or recess or at breakfast or break. Come tell me that story.
So tell me a little about your experience in regards to these relationship building activities and efforts you put in. Does that play into any classroom management benefits, or what's the interplay between relationships and classroom management?
Yes. I'll never forget the first year I was teaching, there's a jobs, and I have not been introduced that down in Texas. Up here we didn't have a jobs. So that's was really neat. I thought, well, I could do all that stuff that they're doing, but once you do that, that gives them ownership to the classroom, and they really take it to heart. So it's kind of neat. So I would suggest have that kind of jobs. This year we switched as far as discipline, we switched to a Pams program, and it was new to us. And it was new to the children. We'd always done the whole brain. So just find what works for you and be consistent and persistent with it, and that's the key. Keep your teacher voice, and that, like I said, that I love that jobs thing, and you just do a rotating. There's a lot of stuff out there on Pinterest and the TPT about jobs, but that it's kind of neat, and you name them, like trying to think of line leader and tour guide, not line leader, tour guide. So they get professional names, and it's just precious. I love it. That's one of my things. Every Monday I change, the Velcro thing, and change it. So that was pretty neat. And they do like to share, and they do like to, tell each other, you could do better than that. It's kind of interesting. They kind of police themselves at times.
One of the ways I think to measure your classroom management success is the peer-to-peer interactions and learning. Because once there's a comfort level of what the rules are of the classroom, what the expectations are, and that box is kind of created for them, seeing them interact within that box is I think, fulfilling as a teacher to know that the efforts have been working and now they're engaging with one another.
Yes. And networking, like you said, networking with your teachers, and they call it teams down here and down in Texas. And it is a team, because we switched from school and some of them dispersed otherwise. So we had a new team this year with some old ones, and then fix and switch again. So you learn to get that team feeling and get in there and help and ask questions. And it just, the networking really is a good thing in teaching.
Yeah, that's words of wisdom right there. So we do have one question on Facebook. I want to ask you, just to remind anyone else, if you have questions, drop them in, and we'll be happy to pick Pam's brain about your thoughts on teaching or her experience. But one of the questions I got here is, What did you find challenging in your experience as a sub? Was there anything that you found challenging being a sub?
Um, yes, of course, the discipline, because as a sub, they like to try to. A guy gave me a book, my son's Boy Scout leaders, how to sink a sub. It was about sub. It was cute. I read it, and that's another thing. As a teacher, you need to be a reader. And so anyway, just the discipline was challenging at first, but once you get your foot in the door and you get called back, it became almost a daily job. You are firm, but you're caring. You're firm, but you've got to be firm. You've got to use that discipline, and you can't let them mow you over or sink you. So
So with
that's
that,
it. Hmm.
did you how did you know what discipline tools or items were available at the school you were subbing at? Because it sounded like you did sub in at different locations. Did you do research to know, or is that part of the sub training? Tell me about, like, you going into a classroom knowing exactly what levers you could pull from a management perspective.
Well, that's a good question, because I had that Mr. Rudolph, back to the professor that put the bug in my ear about it. He said, have a bag, be prepared. So whatever grade level I had extra, I had papers, coloring sheets, or math sheets, different levels. Now high school was a little bit different. I just my kids were in high school and I volunteered, so I kind of knew them when I started subbing up there, and I knew the kids knew me because my children have grown up here since kindergarten on. So that helped. But I would have a bag prepared with worksheets. I would bring a book to read to them, because there's going to be interruptions. There's going to be different things. And the teachers, I've found out, and I'm a teacher now, if you're subbing, you can't get to everything that day, don't stress about it. Just
Okay.
do what you can get done. Um, and if it's not working out, you can change it. Pull that book out of your bag. Pull those worksheets. Do a game. They love heads up, 7 Up. Even little kids, they know it. We
Yeah.
can do heads up, 7 Up. Just some kind of brain breaks. They call them brain breaks in the teaching world. So be prepared for that kind of stuff. If something's not working, stop it. Pull something trick out of the bag.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I would add, that you kind of alluded to, is
Hmm.
based on the age of what you're subbing, just be cognitive of their attention span. One of those,
Yes.
so you know when to put in those brain breaks. And so if you're at an elementary or a kindergarten, those brain breaks need to be coming much more frequently than if you're at a sixth grade or seventh grade level where they have a better
Right.
attention span. So that's one thing that will probably benefit subs, is not to push a kindergarten for 30 minutes straight. That would end poorly for you
Yeah.
as a sub.
And stay on your feet. So wear some comfortable shoes. I learned that too. I think that Mr. Rudolph said that also. Walk the room, and you do, and then sit and help. If you see a student struggle, help them. You might not know the curriculum, but usually they'll leave you teachers' manuals or something you can help. But or find sometimes teacher, I leave a note on students you could trust, or students that are helpful.
Yeah.
So there's usually that, and the teachers will leave you notes. So find that student, get them. If you understand it, get them to come help, or teach you. But it's a working in progress, and it's like I say, it's up on your feet all the time.
Yeah, those are good pieces of advice. Pam, what has it been like with COVID-19? What's your experience been? Have you had good student engagement?
Uh,
How's that treated you?
it's been different. I've learned. In fact, I was taking a Google Classroom because we had to do Google Classroom even for first graders. So I was taking some courses yesterday. But it's different. I had them engaged at first, but I think it depends on your school district. We're a Title I school where I'm at, so some of them didn't even have internet, so we're gonna have to address that issue. So we made paper packets, but some of them couldn't even get there to get the paper packets, so we
Wow.
delivered stuff. So it's gonna be it's a process, and I don't know. I'm like I say, I'm a huggy. We did that high, you pick what you want in the morning, the door greeting. I love that. It was my first year to do that
Yeah.
here at the primary school. And it was wonderful. So that's going to have to change. There's going to be a lot of changes, but I think kids are also moldable. At that age, they can figure things out and they'll go along with it. It's just the adults are going to have to learn.
Well, I mean, hopefully this fall is back into brick and mortar, and it's a
Yes.
normal classroom, and we don't have to rely so much on Zoom and Google Hangouts, as I know a lot of teachers have been doing over the past almost 3 months now.
Yes, yes. And the dojo, we use the dojo app. I don't know if schools, everybody does it, but we had a teacher, she's a lifelong friend now, but she's moved on, but she had a whole semester at Texas A&M on the dojo. So we had to learn dojo this year, and she helped us. So that's important too, because it seems like parents would communicate more through dojo than Google Classroom and because it's right there on your phone. They can text. I mean, so that's a good program to use.
Yeah, it sounds like a useful app.
It was.
So Pam, I know my time I've asked of you is 30 minutes. And so I want to be respectful of that. And
Yes, sir.
you can enjoy your
Okay.
beautiful Kentucky day. But before I let you go,
Yeah.
I do want to hear just your best words of advice for someone entering the school year, this upcoming school year. So if you could speak to a first-year teacher that is going to be stepping in the classroom for the first time in August or September, what's the best advice you could give or that you received as an encouragement to them?
Just know that it's going to be busy, just like your biggest semester you ever had, and it's never ending, and you got something all the time. Just know that it's okay, but also learn to take time for yourself. If you could take a 10-minute walk at lunch or something, if you're having a rough day and it's all the data and all the meetings that you're going to have to go to is going to be new to you, just go and take time for yourself. Love those kiddos, even when they're at their worst. You just got to love them. You got to wrap your head around the empathy and figure out where they're coming from. But self-love, dedication, research always, and just enjoy it. It's a wonderful job. It really is. It's a never-ending 24/7 job. If you're not a worrier, but if you're wanting perfection and you worry about the children, because you're going to worry about some of them when they leave that school. You're going to worry about them, and that's okay. Just love them and just pray about them.
You know, I was speaking to a teacher a couple weeks ago, and he talked about what you even mentioned about patience needing for little kids to be patient. And I think what you're referring to is patience within the day, because you're going to hear stories and you want to affirm what their values are, but you also want to keep them on alignment for the day. But what this individual was saying a couple of weeks ago is just patience over the school year. And I'm hopefully you can affirm this, that the love and the effort that you pour in week 1, week 2, week 3, it might not come to fruition and you might not see it pay off immediately. It might be second semester, but that it's worth the effort and the patience for that light bulb to click, and hopefully it clicks sooner rather than later or at all. But you have to be patient with them. That love and relationship building is a long-term kind of strategy to be played out over their education. It's not, hopefully teachers are not expecting every day to have a great aha moment and all those things, but it will happen. To stay diligent and
stay
patient.
the course. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you can affirm that. It seems to be helpful for teachers to know that you might have bad days, but keep on pushing in.
Yes, and yourself too, and also have fun and laughter with them. Sometimes I'll do something, they just laugh, and it gets them off track a little bit. But sometimes they need that. I'll do something silly right on the board, different. When I can tell the mood is just hot and atmosphere.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just got to think like a kid every once in a while, and it does get them off track for a little bit. But it breaks up the atmosphere, makes it fun, and we get back to it. So
well, even outside the classroom, I think adults could all be served well to think like a kid every once in a while.
Yeah, it does. Like I say, it's a full-time job, and it's a love for the job, that's for sure. Because there'll be times that you're like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? But you just keep on pushing through, and something like you said, the light bulb will come on, or you'll get that out of the blue knee hug that you weren't expecting when you're on the board, or something. But it's very rewarding. It's a great profession.
Well, Pam, I appreciate you taking time from your vacation and your summer to join me and hopefully encourage some teachers either in the profession or thinking about teaching. And so thank you very much. Enjoy your summer.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Absolutely. You too.